for being so. As I am coming from water, but I'm also a bit trying to represent the ISO in that discussion. And when we speak about smart, we probably don't have all the same definition of smart. There are smart tools, but the difficulty, what does it mean, a smart city? And for example, in the water, we speak of course, as everybody, of smart city, but we more push in the IWA, the International Water Association, we push the notion of water-wise city. The vision of smart for us is a city which is wise and not only smart. That means that we consider that smart tools have to be used in order to be more wise. I do agree that probably you can be wise but slow, or you can try to go quicker and to be wiser thanks to smart attitude or smart tools. In a certain way, the ISO has been trying to define what is a smart city. So I would like just to remember, and I'm going to read because I know that in normalization it's important to use the right name and the right words. A smart city should be described as one that dramatically increases the pace at which it improves sustainability and resilience by fundamentally improving how it engages society, how it applies collaborative leadership methods, how it works across disciplines and city systems, and how it uses data and integrated technology in order to transform services and quality of life to those in and involved with the city. So the smart city is more in the objective, although you have to go quick because you have to increase the pace, so it's the velocity you do that. So I propose to go back a bit in the with the vision of a water inside that vision. So I think in the case of water, we have to take care that the city has to be resilient, and I will come back on that, attractive, that the water management must preserve and improve the environment. It's one of our missions when we are in charge of water and wastewater. Where we have a responsible resource use, we more and more try to reduce the use of water, like you have been discussing about reducing the use of energy. So we have the same kind of vision. So it's very important to look at those aspects, and I propose to go back a bit with you, separating a bit the different aspects of a city on the point of view of water. I would like to try, if we look all that axis, one which is important is the attractiveness of the city. And being in Singapore, I suppose that you have, if you have been able to visit Singapore, or if you know Singapore and the way Singapore is dealing with the water has been a very important part of the development of Singapore, because they need to be careful on water. They are dependent to Malaysian country on water, so they are very keen on water. But afterward, they have been developing a sense of how you use water, how the city can be improved by seeing the water. So the water is in itself also a way of attract people and attract economy, but attract also the citizens. So starting by attractivity of the city, I would like to, Trevor, to ask you a bit. You have been awarded in 2015 in an award on Smart City. So I would like you to explain a bit why. What did you do in Petersburg, which was so interesting to be rewarded? Did you make lots of lobby, or you consider that really it was reasonable? Can you explain a bit the smart city you had and how you did that globally?
Okay, yes. Thank you, Diane, for the introduction. And it's a great pleasure to be here representing Peterborough, which, although it's a fine city, can't compete with Singapore in terms of scale of attractions and so on. Before I come back to the particular point you raise about the Smart City, World Smart City Award 2015 and some of the background to that, I thought it might be appropriate just to give my perspective on water and the various complexities of it, and which will be well known, I'm sure, to much of the audience. But it's often forgotten in a rainy country like the UK that we are in many parts, certainly in the bit that Peterborough is located in, the east of the country, we are water stressed in that there's more water abstracted than falls from the sky, which is hard to believe some days in the UK. So water is a very important part to us. I think also what makes water unique from the other utilities, the other pain points, if you like, that we're picking up today, is that it's almost, it is impossible to separate it from the other aspects, such as energy that we've already heard discussed in the first panel, but also from food. And I think that's often overlooked. It is one of the building blocks of life. It's part of the food chain. It's used in the production of food and so on. So it has a very special sort of level of complexity. And overlaid on that, of course, is the recreational and attractiveness of water, as you mentioned. So there's a level of complexity there when you look at it as a subject. I think in the UK, and again, it may be very different to other countries and cities represented here, there's also a level of complexity at the administrative level, which is quite interesting. In that, as a commodity, water passes through many hands before it reaches the consumer. Obviously, central government is responsible for policy. You have local authorities who are responsible for the surface water as it falls in their particular towns or cities. You have the water companies that provide water. It's been privatized in the UK since 1989, that provide clean water and deal with wastewater. And amongst all of that, you have the Environment Agency responsible for pollution, and indeed Ofwat, who's responsible for regulating many of the companies and the structures involved. So there's multiple levels of complexity involved, which I think is really interesting to explore as part of the panel today. In terms of Peterborough and in terms of the Smart City Award, we're one of 4 future city demonstrators in the UK. So we've been dealing with smart city initiatives at the community level for 2 or 3 years now. And one of the reasons we got the award in 2015 was really our thinking around the involvement of citizens, putting citizens at the heart of what we do. We have a phrase that we use repeatedly, which is about putting the human back into smart cities, if you like, because often the debate in the early years was very much technically focused and often forgot about the very people that would benefit from smarter, more efficient cities. And in particular around our smart cities, it's our new thinking, and again this was mentioned in the earlier panel, our early thinking around circular city. So we have an initiative called Circular Peterborough, which at this point is really a debate about how you make a small to medium-sized city circular in its operation. How do you try and build that resilience, that community capability, in order that the city can be much stronger for it?
There are in England, in UK, I've never seen this in England or UK, some experience of local money which have been done in order to stimulate the economy. Did you do that in Peterborough or not? Because there are 1 or 2 cities in England who have been doing their own money and they exchange inside the city. It's a strange thing, but
no, we've not looked at that specifically. Okay. But in the approach to circular economy, it is about sharing in many different ways. So using one commodity or service in exchange for another at a community level, a business level, whatever. Very hard challenges to tackle, but ones we think we need to have a debate on.
Yeah, I was giving that example because it's in circular economy you organize in order that someone can deliver waste and the other one take it. But in some part it has been gone even further because you can pay with the local money. So it's quite interesting to know that you have that in UK. I don't know if there was a link with the Brexit, but or starting to think of Brexit. Although I have to say, and I said I would say that to your public, that Petersburg was the second city in UK for voting in favor of Brexit. So maybe by developing your sense of community, they started to say, why should we be part of Europe? So there are some risks. Okay.
I think that's for another panel, that one.
So I started by the attractiveness of the city because it's probably, in the water business, it's very important. I mean, you probably not have so much, except if you start to say that you need electricity for light, and light is part of attractiveness of city. But the water, we have that sense. So I would like to come back a bit now on one part which is also part of attractiveness. In water, you have, of course, to deliver drinkable water for drink, and quality of the water is important. And you have also the wastewater retreating in order to re-put in the nature. So the quality is very important. So Alicia, I think you have lots of tools in order to control water quality, in order to the quality of the... Can you speak about all the development of those sensors? It's quite... Now there are more, but 20 years ago we didn't have so many sensors, so we developed. What do we do with that? Do we store them or do we use online? What is your experience in the use of those tools?
Well, thanks for the introduction. Just to give some context of what we are doing, we are in the perspective of sensing, so we basically integrate any sensor with any communication protocol, and we make it possible to upload any data to the cloud. We are working in this interoperability need, which is the most repeated word so far today, and it will be at the end of the day, I'm totally sure, with any cloud system. So regarding water, we started working with water sensors 2 years ago. And in the case of monitoring the quality, there are several aspects to take care of. If you look at the production point of view of water quality, you can think of fish farms, for example, and we have many fish farms in this region here in Asia. The productivity of the fish is increasing 25% every year, and at the same time we are seeing losses in those productions because of fishes dying. So that's something that you can enhance by monitoring the appropriate parameters like the dissolved oxygen and the temperature of the water, and taking care also of the ORP in the water. That's also regarding the attractiveness of the city, the water quality of the rivers and the sea, even when you are jumping in the swimming pool, all the citizens are getting more aware of the quality, not only of the air that we are breathing, but also of the water where we are having fun. And in Spain, we are very proud of our beaches. We have the blue flag naming the best beaches that we have, and from the latest years, we are also offering the measurements of the water quality of the sea. So that gives you an idea of how important is that for the citizens and for the tourism.
So it's big. Today it's online analysis, and you can even give what we see. It's true also in other countries. You can give to the people. You can go and base in the city. It's okay, because I've been measured, and then it is.
Exactly, and just to give you a very specific example on how it works, we are doing a project with a water treatment plant in the north of Spain, and they are, thanks to the process of making online those measurements, they are optimizing the use of the water treatment plant. So they are, the results are a 40% of savings by making it faster, the detection of the action plans they need to put in action in an average of 40 to 80% faster than not doing that in an online way. So just by making the measurements online, it's a big difference.
Optimization and,
Yep.
and mainly on energy? Or is it, what do you save? Energy, manpower, or you know that? Or chemical products, or is it a reduce? You said you save. You save
Yep.
a cost. Is it mainly on energy cost, or you know that? No.
It's usually the mixture of course, chemicals, but but basically, the sooner you detect a problem, the less waste you are producing, the less chemicals you need to use to clean that water. So that's basically the whole compose of that.
Okay. Maybe we speak about information.
Mm-hmm.
How do you bring back that information? By radio? You use the electricity in order to bring back the information, or what is your technology?
All our devices are battery power, which is a big innovation in the water industry. Usually the sensors need always high power to work. In our case, all the sensors that we are working with can be battery power, and we are always using wireless sensors. So it doesn't matter if they are Zigbee, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or cellular technologies, or even those narrowband new technologies like Sigfox or LoRa. We are compliant with all of them.
So maybe I will challenge a bit Mr. Singuin. What is your vision on those? What is the way to bring back? Because do you have a clear vision, or do you have to adapt to different way of bringing back data? Because yes, there are lots of technology for the moment, and lots of discussion of what is the best. So what is your vision on that?
Yes, thank you, Diana. And we think that for water issues in cities and in the background of building smart sustainable cities, we think it's very important to have. We would suggest to separate these issues into two parts. The first one is water facilities or water infrastructure, and then the second one is water itself. So it will make the issue very clear. And then we can try to find what is the best way to improve the quality of water and to make the ICT technology is very efficient in water processing. So generally, we think for the water facilities, we would suggest some of the technologies can be used to, for example, Internet of Things and just speak that technologies can be used to improve water facilities and for sanitations, and we have evaluation for the efficiency of sanitations, wastewater processing, and water detections, and so on, and water pollutions preventions. So that is the point one. For the water itself, and we would suggest that some of the measurement on water, so we can use some of the ICT technologies, for example, smart meterings, and we can also use some of the technologies just like cloud computing to connect the information of the water distributions and so on, so that it will make the work very efficient. And currently, we think that now is the forum for IEC, ISO, and IT. We think that it's very important to have standardization work in water. And so we will try to get indicators, some of the work to evaluate an achievement of the cities to improve the water facilities and the water qualities. So that what we have done in the nearest years, and we will also work on these work items. Thank you.
I will come back on water meters and that part. Just Alicia again, we have been speaking of COP21 this morning. It was, of course, in the water business, we take care of electricity. We try to reduce. Some tools help us to reduce electricity, to be more aware of that. But I have to say that at the COP22, we as IWA, International Water Association, we are going to say that, in fact, we are going to be impacted by the climate change. Because the first big impact of climate change is to give us either too much water or not enough. It is, we are going to deal with a change, and either we have too much, and we see that now in big events everywhere, in fact, in the world, flood events with all the problems. So and I will come back on lack of water, but when you have too much water, what can you do? What is your vision of the evolution of the technology and how the smart city will deal with too much water?
Yeah, that's a very good point, to have too much or not too enough, and not when you especially need that. In the case of river floodings, we are seeing that's totally attached to the word resilience, the ability to react in front of those kind of disasters. We are working with several cities, especially in rural areas, to monitor the river levels by ultrasound sensors, and transmit that wirelessly to different control stations. That way we can raise alerts when the level of the rivers are rising at a certain speed. It's not only about knowing the level, but about the speedness of the increasing in the level. So we have several projects in different parts of Asia, and there's also another one in the northeast of Spain, where we are working with the local municipality to provide them with those tools. In those cases, what they are doing is to use the information to raise an alert to the population, because sometimes they know that if level is 3 meters in that part of the mountain, I have 2 hours to evacuate this whole area. So knowing that on time is critical to save lives in many cases.
Yeah, that's a good point. On the city itself, I can speak of an experience of a tool Suez is using and developing. For example, the city of Bordeaux is a city where you can have some very strong rainwater suddenly. So you have to optimize the network, the use of your network, in order to anticipate. You can 1 hour before try. And how do you know that you have to anticipate? Because you are connected to the radar, and the radar gives you some good evaluation of what will happen in 1 or 2 hours, because you can anticipate rain with. And most of the time in big cities, you have rain in a side, but not in the other side. So you can work a little better with a good modelization of what is going and how you use your rainwater pipes in order. So it is also done now in Singapore. There is a program for optimizing the rainwater. So it's exactly what can bring smart tools. You have an anticipation of your rain, you modelize, you use that, and then you optimize your network. And you can, of course, also give some alert to people or to your people, because they have to start. You can start with pump, but you have also. So on flood and resilience of cities, it is very important. Online tools can really, really be very important and increase, because most of time when there are some accidents, it's because people were not aware of it. I mean, you can have that is a great change and tools. Smart tools are really useful for that, for the resilience. We can try also to predict a little bit more, but that's still to do, in fact. What will happen with 2 degrees more? What can we expect in our cities? What will happen? That it is unfortunately still unknown. Mm-hmm. We know that economically we can probably limit to 2 degrees, but honestly nobody knows exactly what will be the impact. We don't know yet. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit difficult to anticipate. And that's where probably models and analysis and big data will be useful. I would like to come back to the other part, which is, okay, too much water sometimes and not enough. It's clear that the climate change means for us that probably there would be some place where you will have less water. And so what do we do to anticipate that? Mm-hmm. What can be solutions? First one is what we call smart meter. You have said that the water business is starting to have smart meters. In electricity, you are used with that for years and years. In the water, it's not so developed. For first reason is the bill of water is not at all the same level of a bill of electricity. So you have some difficulties sometimes to sell the smart meter. So it's still in development, but it's new. I mean, it's starting. So smart meters, again, smart meters by radio, smart meters by electricity. What are your vision on that? There are some big debates on, can I use the electricity network to bring back the information, or should I use another? It's okay. People are discussing. Have you an opinion on what is the best solution? Maybe I would challenge you, depending what you will answer.
Yes, thank you.
What is your vision on smart meter in water? How do you do that, and how do you bring the information?
Yes, we think that the most important issue is water itself, and you know that for the climate change, and the distribution of water is not equally, and so for example in China we have too much water in South China and too less water in North China, and we are trying to bring the water from South China to North China, and then we need to try to find the solution to metering the efficiency of the water and how they can bring well-being to the citizens of the cities, and how the ICT technology to measure the efficiencies, to measure smart metering can play an important role in this process. And we have tried to use some of the technologies. For example, we can combine it with telecommunications technology to detect the pollutions and the quality of water, and also to bring the water to some of the part. So that is what we have done for these visions of water. And also we think that for the urbanization and more people to go to the cities, and it is important to provide drinking water for the peoples. And also we have this measurement to how the effectiveness for this process. We think ICT can bring a very, very important role in this area, and we have done to use some of the Internet of Things technologies, SCADA systems, and also cloud computing, this technology to do in this work. And we think that we still have a lot of gap analysis in how this can be done in the future. And So that is our vision for the future work of water management.
That's true that in the water network, the development of tools have been really interesting. In fact, I've been, as a water professional, I've been dreaming of having a smart meter for 30 years. It was not possible, it was difficult. Now you can get it, and you imagine to be able to see how much you consume water and compare how much you produce. I remember that 30 years ago we were doing that once a year by having the information, because you had the information once a year, so you were comparing production and distribution once a year. It was problematic because sometimes you had you find that you lose 20% water, but sometimes you find that you had more, you were creating water because your meters were not perfect, or there was some difficulties because you don't have the information at the same times. I have to say that for an engineer it was interesting because my boss was accepting 20% loss, but he didn't accept that I was creating water. For an engineer it was a problematic aspect. By having now meters that you can have online, you have much more than before the capability to look what it is in that sector and to make sectorization, even to be able to reduce pressure in order to reduce non-revenue water. And the smart meter, the meter that you can have, is really interesting when you want to know, that's clear, but also when you want to develop awareness. And I would like to ask you again the question on what do you think the people are ready to do if we ask them to reduce their consumption in summer or when there is lack? Do you think they would be able to do that? What is your feeling about the capability of people to reduce consumption just because we ask them?
I think the answer has to be yes to that. I think if people within a city understand the reasons for it, the one benefit of things like smart meters and other technologies is that people can see for themselves, perhaps on their own smart devices, their impact on the environment and on some of these big challenges that face us, like climate change. So I think there would very easily be a willingness for people to adopt those new technologies. I just wanted to pick up a little bit on the solutions themselves in a way. We've mentioned about sort of smart meters and reducing water consumption. There's also loss of water at other aspects in the chain, if you like. And one of the approaches we've used in Peterborough is a partnership with Anglian Water Company, the distribution company for our part of the UK. And that's really about crowdsourcing solutions to challenges that the company has in reducing waste, getting supplies up and running quickly after leakages. And basically the challenges are put out there amongst a community of small to medium-sized businesses, essentially, for them to propose solutions to the company. And there are many examples where those ideas have been nurtured into very practical solutions that have helped along the route to save water, reduce costs, improve efficiency, or whatever. So that sort of collaborative approach to finding solutions, I think, is also an interesting way of looking at the world.
Before coming back to how to manage to reduce and what are the tools we can use to use less water, I would like to answer a question about developing countries. I've been speaking on smart city where there is, in a certain way, water for everybody and people are happy, but 2 billion people in the world don't have water every day, 24 hours. There is still a lot of place in the world, which means that we speak on smart, but in fact in the water we are more in the sustainable development and sustainable development of the city, which there is a new norm. ISO just launched a norm on that. And in the UN nation, they even push what they call the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, which precise what is the objective of a city and of a country. And the water is very important. It's one of the axes is the axis 6. But in fact, if you look at the other, because you speak about health, you speak about, then always you have water and water. So we have some very precise objective on the SDG 6, but we know that water is part. And one of the challenge of the water profession is to solve that. And in fact, if you have 24 hours water, thanks to measurement captures, you stop pumps, you start pumps, you have reserve, and that's easy. But when you have not permanent water, and it is a point we have to face, you have intermittent water, then it becomes very difficult, because it's difficult to distribute, and you don't have quality, then you have to use other. So one of the questions is, what do you do in that case? How do you manage? It's sure that the water professional try to say that the best is to be able to distribute 24 hours. That's easy. But in fact, probably we have to think a bit how could we, meanwhile we go to that objective, how can we organize, how can we do in order to be able to be the best possible, even if we don't deliver 24 hours. It seems strange. You have that in electricity too. Some place in the world doesn't have 24 hours electricity. And I have to say, because I've been in Haiti and I'm doing some operational assistance in Haiti, that you don't have 24 hours water, and there is no 24-hour electricity. And I confirm that for water people, if you don't have electricity, it's not easy to give water. So the first thing for us is, if we can have 24-hour electricity, maybe we can a bit improve the water, but we are completely linked to electricity, to speak a bit cross silo. And the first cost in a water distribution is manpower. Mm-hmm. You said that by having captors or things, you can have better efficiency because mm-hmm. you avoid doing things. The second one is electricity. 40% of the cost is electricity. It's really a very big amount. And if you have no electricity, it's a problem. So yes, the water business needs electricity, need captors, need to be able to do that and to develop that. It's very important. Coming back to, for that reason, if you have less water, if you don't have the means of production of water, which means that you have to do rationing, you can't give, all you can do to diminish the consumption is important, or to reuse. We do more in the water, we reuse. You were speaking of eco-efficiency or eco-effectiveness. Okay, we do that. We have started to do reuse of water. So how do we do? Can you have some example on quality? Because reuse, you need to be sure of the quality. Mm-hmm. What are you proposing, or what is your experience on the water reuse?
Well, we have two big areas to save water. The first one is to avoid the use of water when it's not necessary, which is obvious, but when you think of the examples of irrigation of parks and gardens in the cities, those irrigation systems are pre-programmed on a schedule, not accordingly to the weather conditions. So just by monitoring the soil moisture and turning on and off the irrigation systems, you can just make a more rational use of the water. The other aspect is more related to what you were saying of reuse of the water. We have an example of that in Australia. We are working with a meat company in the food industry, and they are using tons of water in their production processes. So wastewater becomes a critical aspect of the production process, because they need to manage that. In those cases, they are trying to reuse as much wastewater for irrigation as possible, and they are monitoring two things. First, they are trying to keep control of the impact of wastewater in groundwater, to what extent they may impact on the environment, and on the other hand, how much amount of wastewater can they reuse in irrigation systems. So they are monitoring the overall water quality, measuring many different ions dissolved in the water to do that.
It's clear that the water profession is working more and more on the circular economy. In the water, it's funny to speak about circular economy, because when you start working in water, you speak about the big cycle and the small cycle. So we have always been in cycle. I mean, you don't work in water without thinking that you receive water, you use water, you send it back to the sea, and then it goes back in, and then you have that the big cycle. And we as professionals, we are in the small cycle. We take the water in the river and we put it back to the river. So what we are going to do, we are going to do more cycles, small cycle inside the small cycle. That is increasing the circularity of the water. Of course, you need to be careful of quality, but you can also decide that that water has been used for potable use, and now you are going to use for industry, and then afterwards for another. I mean, you cascade your usage, and you start and you try to keep good water for drinking water, and then you can use the other water for other purposes, because in fact, in the day-to-day life, the part of the water you drink is very small, very, very small. It's 2 or 3 liters per day. We speak about 150 liters per day for all those aspects, and it's still a very small pieces compared to the industry, and a very, very, very small pieces compared to the agriculture. Maybe interesting for you to know that if I put all the water which is used for a human being per day, and I include the water for agriculture, we speak about 4 cubic meters per day, 4,000 liters per day. It's a huge amount, but that part is mainly for agriculture and for food. So it is natural water, it's rainwater. You have spoken of irrigation. The irrigation is more and more used because it's a way also of developing the crops. I mean, it's efficient. But it's true that the irrigation up to now has not been really always very efficient. People put water when it's during day, they should do it. So the optimization of the irrigation is really a very big challenge. But it's also, it will be thanks to anticipation. Why should you do irrigation if it is going to rain tomorrow? So the anticipation, the measure, do you need more? So there is a huge part of smart tool which can be developed for irrigation, and that it is absolutely necessary, because we know that on water we are going to fight with electricity provider, with industry, but mainly with agriculture. So it's important to be able to use those tools, and it's very, very important that. To agriculture, we said, so optimization on that. Maybe on transversality and how can we put water and energy together. Again, water is using lots of energy, not lots of energy comparing to others, but for us it's a lot. I mean, it's an important part. If we try to know how much energy is consumed on water, the order of magnitude is 8% of the energy goes for water. But on the 8%, the main part is for having hot water, and not for pumping and bringing it at home. That would be 2 or 3%, no more. Yes, but it's something, I mean, 2 or 3%. The very big advantage of water is that you can store water. You don't store easily electricity. On the contrary, we are used in our profession to store water because we want to be sure that there will be water when people are going to ask. And as we can store, we have the habit to have a capacity of production which is more or less what you need for a day. We don't need capacity of production with peak hours. So we distribute the water linked. The peak hour is done by storage. We stock storage, and so it's in most of time your tanks are in height. I mean, and then it goes naturally, and that you can use it. And when you have a smart tarification of energy, which I've been seeing that in some countries, as a professional water, you can decide to stop pumping when the energy is at high price, peak hours, or to pump more at night and less during day. That was what I knew 20 years ago, because in France, for example, the nuclear energy, they didn't know what to do at night, so they were proposing low price at night, so we were pumping at night when we don't really need water, in fact, because people are sleeping. But then we could use at lower cost. That, in my opinion, is a very important point where a good management of energy and water could bring value for both activity. Because we could perfectly adapt ourselves. If energy say, well, I have some peak, very small and peak, not hours, but peak minutes, or I want to reduce the energy for half an hour. We can do it. It's fine. If you give us a good price, we're ready to reduce our production at that time. So you can have a very good thinking, and there are, you speak about smart network, and we are very happy if you bring us some tarification and incentives to be smart. One example which I sometimes take is about desalination. We have methods for transforming seawater in soft water and drinkable water. It's consumed quite a lot energy. So it's now with solar energy, we don't speak anymore that it is a problem for the environment, because we can expect to have solar energy for that. But the interest also for that, it would be to say that we can adapt the desalination to the condition of the electricity. So if you have too much electricity during the day because it's solar, we are very happy to produce water at that time. And if you want us to stop during night, no problem. So my vision is we should not integrate energy inside our technology of desalination, but we should try to be the most efficient in desalination, using the less energy possible, and go towards energy people and said, do be smart and propose a smart tarification, and we are going to be smart and do the best we can. Mm-hmm. I think each of us can do, and that it is typically where you can have some good and efficient coordination and stop silos and work together, because we clearly can do that kind of thing. I think there are lots of examples where we can optimize. And of course that it is thanks to captors, to pumps, to SCADA system. Of course, you need SCADA system. You can't do that without that. But you could also say to your consumer, well, normally we have energy to produce and do desalination, but the energy provider asks us to stop a little more. So maybe we can ask you to reduce a bit your consumption. And thanks to smart meter, we could have smart tarification and said them, oh, see, if you can stop using water at that part of the day, then we could have a lower price. So yeah, you want to? Yeah.
Well, in fact, that's I was thinking of the smart home. We are seeing all kinds of gadgets arrive in our homes to control electricity, but none of them is oriented to raise awareness on the way that we are using water. So now, from a pure cost perspective, if I compare my electricity bill with my water bill, it's like 4 times. So from a
Unfortunately for us, yeah.
So from a pure cost perspective, as a home manager, I would say, well, if I need to make an IT investment, I'm going to make an investment in controlling the power consumption of my fridge, of my lights. I want to receive advices on whether to change the fridge for a more optimized one, or how to use the electricity in a better way to save money. But there's nothing about water, and there are 2 problems. First of all is that the cost of water is less, so
at least the price.
Yeah, so I get a lower incentive from a consumer perspective. And second of all, the equipment to control not only the consume, but also the water quality would be higher. Because we are having more and more conversations with partners that want to raise smart taps, just to raise awareness, not only about the money you are using, but also about the consequences. If you take 5 minutes less in this shower, you would be saving these liters. Okay, so what? No, this means this amount of water could be used, this is the equivalent to be used in irrigation for this amount of land. That gives you an idea. And the other action that we could raise would be to measure the outbound quality of the water, because of course water plants are taking care of the water quality we are receiving. But what about if I'm spilling oil in the tap? We don't have enough awareness in our houses. What if we could have any kind of indicator saying, well, you need to pay more because you are costing more to the system, not because of the water you are using, but because of the low quality that you are re-entering in the system. So I think that maybe taking care including all those indicators of the cycle that you were mentioning, and could be used to make a smart tariffication of water, not only thinking of consumption, but also in the quality that we are putting back.
It's you have an opinion on how much the people are interested in knowing what quality of the water they are going to send back to the environment?
Yeah, again, as I mentioned earlier, I think there is, I think the interest has always been there, but I think there's a growing interest now in people being able to see the impact they're having, and hopefully the positive impact of making the behavior change, because that's ultimately what's behind this. It's a change in behavior at a household level, an individual level, a business level. If people can see the benefits of that, they're more likely to do a little bit more. There was just one point I was going to raise in relation to the sort of integration. We've talked about water and energy a lot, understandably, and it's a question really, not maybe for answering in this panel, but I'm not sure. We talk a lot about technology and joining things up. I'm not sure how much collaboration actually goes on person to person in cities when we're planning the future of areas. Certainly in the past, it's been the case that utilities and providers have gone their own way, and we've tried to sort of retrofit, if you like, the integration further down. I would like to think, it's not my particular field, I'd like to think that we're beyond that now, and that people are talking more before we move to the technological solutions.
Yeah, there is one point where the utilities are working much more than before, is that they are exchanging their mapping system and they try to coordinate better when they have to work on the road, because it was before you were hoping there was the electricity coming and opening the road, and then they make the road again, and then the water was coming, and then the gas was coming, and then, so now there is a better coordination thanks to mapping and capacity to exchange the information that was not existing. I mean, so that it is in the work, or I would say the network intervention. That's true. And the rest is still quite, I do agree, quite difficult. I have a question about tarification and price. So probably I would like to answer to that. Could the price of water increase? That is a very, very big debate. Most of places in the world doesn't bill water to the cost. I mean, the cost is higher than the price. And of course that it is not really, on long term, it's complex for two reasons. First, because you have someone who has to pay for the difference. So, and second, because the client doesn't have the information. Mm-hmm. If you give the right price, which is the cost most of time, then people adapt. If you subsidize water, people are throwing it away. They don't know. They think it is no cost. Mm. And you see some countries where there is no meter. How can you bill water on square meter and not on cubic meters? I mean, if you had to bill electricity on square meters, I tell you that they would let the window open and the life would be nice. So we are still in water in that situation, because the water is very political. And we still have some problems to try to remember that it should be at this cost. It should be, the tarification should do that. Because then people start to understand that if they reduce their consumption, it would reduce their bill. And so you have example of 400 liters per day per person, no meters, Buenos Aires. 400 liters per person meters, but in United States. And you see in Germany, 100 liters per day. There are no so big difference between Germany and United States. But there are some places in United, like San Francisco, Los Angeles, where they have been developing awareness, so they are at the same level of standards. So price is very, very important. Mm-hmm. At least the price which led to cover the cost. And the second, and eventually you could have some variation of your price depending if it is night, day, winter, summer. There used to be differences, and well, it has been. But the price is very important, and I was saying that for us, a smart price of electricity make us react, and I'm sure that it would be the same for water. I mean, there is no reason. Is the unavailability of water because it isn't there or because it is unusable? That's a good question. It's not easy to destroy water. If you have 1 cubic meter of water and you want that cubic meter to disappear, it costs you a lot of money in electricity to make it go to the wind. I mean, it's not so easy to do. But to destroy the quality of water is very easy. And it was what you were saying. With very few things, you can destroy the quality. And sometimes we forget to speak about quality. Mm-hmm. Many people think that it's only quantity. Mm. So yes, sometimes there is water, but the quality is such that you can't use it. Wells which have been polluted. But now the technologies let us to do good water, even with very polluted water. But of course it can cost a lot. So the message most of the time is try to conserve water, but also be careful, because you can destroy really very easily with few elements. You can destroy a swimming pool or whatever. It's not so difficult. So that's true that the quality is probably, and you said that, the quality is very, very important too. Okay. And maybe a question about developing countries. Why don't, the question is, can we make smart technology at lower price for developing countries? I wish we could, but I would tell you that it's probably more your business to try to bring us, people from water, some lower price for those technology. Water is not expensive. You have said that the bill is 1/4. So we need low-cost technology because in order to be using those smart technology. Thank you.
We want to leave you with some burning questions while the soup is still warm to make sure that we can take advantage of the fact that we've discovered that it's not only a technology challenge and not only a social inclusion challenge, it's also an economic challenge. How do we price these things, whether it's a kilowatt hour of energy or a unit of water? This is going to come up in a big way in the afternoon as we talk about the cost of remaking mobility systems in cities to make them smarter and greener while securing all of the systems at the same time. So on behalf of the rest of us, thank you very much for the panel. That was outstanding. We're going to now break for lunch to the 5th floor. Join me in thanking them for us.